ones that had overwintered in that, they were
Go, please. Thank you.
Steve, I'm calling you to order. Everyone will say their name for the record.
Steve Willett.
Thomas Weimer. Andrew Ruiz. Public, we have a number of items on our agenda today, including a safe center of goods here to address everyone. So we're moving on to the first one, approval of minutes from the last meeting.
I just have one change on page 5, or 6 and 7, I guess it was, not numbered. Down at the bottom, when I made my notorious motion to add the words "and solar," it was between the word wind and energy. Wind and solar energy. Not before. It makes sense when you say "and solar wind energy." And it's also on the top of the next page. Should read wind and solar energy. That was the motion I made that made me famous.
Any other corrections?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes with those 2 changes, unless anybody else has another change I missed.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
New business, we have an application from Jerry Thompson for a line change from A1 to B3. Before you get started, Kate, was there anything as far as staff report that you want to emphasize?
Large almost fit that in that space.
Tell us a little about your project on the west 26th.
Yeah, so essentially there's 28 acres that it's right along 16th Highway, and it'll be moved off 8 acres and kind of north center part of the pasture there. And the idea is to have a living venue, center, so that will be only change from that. But there is just, put up a big building. Or what other large ones.
We should have the conceptual drawings, subdivision packets. I think there was a small some of the descriptions I talked about in 60 by 100 is one building. But there's one of them that goes to some slightly less verification.
So the building itself is 65 and 120, and there's an easement, so the enclosed part of the lease.
This is the concept of what
That works.
What would you guys do for that one?
It's really only anything, the wedding reception, stuff like that is kind of what the thought is behind it, but there's no limitations to, a large company tree or possibly a wholesale out there or, so that's.
There was an event, near Shoulder, I believe, owned by the Browns. Will it be a competition with them?
I mean, let's say, they're on smaller scale. They would be on a smaller scale, but this would be a larger scale. Yeah, I would say it'd be some sort of competition that is there in that scenario.
Seems like kind of is it west of Bucks Grove Church? On the south side, top of the hill there. There goes here by any chance. Are those mayors, who's your nearest, neighbors out there?
There is,
What's the nearest people to be closest to that facility? I do. They have to talk to me about it all.
Hold on, no,
Yeah.
we're coming to the public comment.
Yeah.
We will come to that. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Each are doing something, is that right?
Do you know the height at the peak of the building?
Well, that's, it's supposed to be 16-foot sidewalls.
So it's nowhere, the regulations require less than 45 feet, so it's not at 70.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, if you look around, there's other concepts of the same idea. We're looking at to build and there's several levels around.
Yeah, I'm not looking to discredit you, I look forward to all kinds of economic development, small business. I just want to make sure you're within the right. So we're trying to build about feet.
So I assume kind of your motive behind this is you guys are right on the start of the flint. A nice pretty venue and everything else would be, and there, I mean, is the one you were talking about, is that the Red Rocks guest range, is that what you're talking about? So, I mean, that's pretty secluded off the highway, isn't it?
I don't remember, but
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah, I think it's a ways off the beaten path, so this would,
15 miles.
yeah, this would give something near a better road and stuff like that.
I think it's not on their location. The judge is married or something, have something license to put it out. It's a perfect option for that.
Any other questions from the board?
I guess I don't know.
I was just reading the regulations, and it says on the side yard, where a B3 zone abuts any residential district zone, they're not allowed in any residential, it has a fence specification. They're not allowed in the
open again the public hearing, public comments. So first, comments from people that are in support of this application. If you could, because we have a number of items on our agenda, if you could please limit to remarks on one. Sorry for the short timeline, I will have several other comments. Would you like to say anything, words on the neighbors?
Well, I'm not real sure what they're going to be doing out there, what their intention on. It's business, that's all it says in my paper that I got.
So, it's gotta be rezoned to commercial, it's currently ag.
Right.
But as far as the business side of it, in order to do this, it has to be zone commercial. The intention of having wedding venues out there, receptions out there, and that is the main intention. And then you can, go on from there.
Be an awful lot of extra traffic
Could be at
certain
times, but, it's not something that you can have weddings every.
And because we got, there's a couple big hills out there, and sometimes just come barreling down through there.
Sure.
And we're just properties that, you've got that little lake, I don't really can't show the map, but, there ain't a whole lot of, it's almost on top of the hill where, one way you can see, but the other way you can't.
But coming out of the drive, how the drive is, when you pull out of the drive, you can see as far left, as far right as you can see. So you have
If
plenty
you
of time to
keep
make
the S-shaped driveway, that, if you put in another driveway, there to the fence,
It's all KDOT has been out there, and then talked to and has in our whole state.
KDOT's out there and we had to meet with them to get approved to even get going with this. And the only thing they have to do is on a traffic report.
pull-off ones,
No. There's not going to be a ton of traffic out there. The only time there will be some kind of traffic would be, say, for an hour before the event, when people are coming in, and then, when the event is over and people are leaving. So it's not like there's going to be a ton of traffic coming in and out regularly, like a typical commercial business.
well, all right. That's my biggest question, because it is a safety issue. How quiet is this?
Sir, I should have asked your name for the record before recommending.
I think the deal's Ernest Rice.
I'm sorry?
Ernest Rice.
Okay, thank you.
Well, has there been a traffic study done?
There has not been yet. We have to have this done and then there's going to be a traffic study. That's what the KDOT is.
This is not the new entrance, existing entrance.
Just the entrance and.
Well, there's a dirt path right now.
Yeah, but in all cases, I retired from KDOT, they do a thorough review on something like this, so.
These events are something you get to be multiple days.
There might be a wedding back to back, you can sure do that,
There's a setup day on a Friday and a wedding Saturday. So the setup day will be, minimal.
You're not gonna have something like a rock concert that goes on for 3 or 4 days.
Woodstock.
Yeah.
Maybe Woodstock. Yeah, so you got it.
Nothing like that.
Okay.
Yes, if you state your name for the.
Robert Benberg.
Robert Lindbergh.
Benberg. I guess my only question is, and I've been to different places where, similar to what you're talking about, growth and expansion. Well, now let's say, many, many years ago, that place had a farm ground on it.
Had what?
Had farm ground on it.
Yes.
It could be planted corn, a corn maze, a Halloween. What are you have realistic and unrealistic future plans, I guess would be the way to word that.
Well, we're not any type of farmers, we're just cattle ranchers, so I think the corn maze is kind of out of the option for us. But as far as growth and expansion on that, I really think, the wedding venues, events, stuff like that is kind of just where we're targeting this as.
Well, I just thought, you've got an investment
Sure.
in this property, and if you can add,
There could be something.
the Halloween coming up with the corn maze and all the things they have,
I know.
well, mine would be a possibility.
That could be an option. But it could be more targeted to, nowadays hunting is real big around us. If some hunters need, I don't know, if they're having a retreat or something out there, that could be an option. But as far as other plans, it's kind of stuck to it. It's kind of hard to, I guess, change it and everything from the way we want to set it up as. So, but as far as like large company gatherings or even small company gatherings, it'll be essentially like the fairgrounds building, similar. So your options are kind of, endless as far as what kind of gatherings.
Well, you got water out there, and you have rain, but other than that,
Essentially, though, we're looking mainly as a wedding type venue with a pretty prairie grass. If you've been to some of these wedding venues and seen the pictures that took, the backdrops or everything. And we, when we bought that place, it was, not very good. We spent a lot of time to establish that prairie grass back there. And that's essentially we want to keep it as that, and keep it beautiful for the backdrops, maybe, some, outside, venue, some place, a station where they could have an outdoor venue, but that would be just right outside there with the backdrop of the palm tree. So essentially, that's all.
what kind of puts my mind at ease is one of the thoughts I had, hunting is and cornering that property, and we deer hunt ourselves where it'd be real easy to put up some cabins and release some food hunters, which wouldn't have a problem with as long as they stay off. But they're, hunting, Jason and they
We're not hunters, but we need some.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
Or are you talking about,
the only thing is that property that has a place on that.
are you talking about the big one, south of,
Yeah.
we don't, we own land around that, but we don't own any of that.
I'm wondering if your long-range plan involves possibly allowing fishing, wording of people wanting to camp and fish on that lake up there.
I think that was made on the word
Any of that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's
Not
not,
on that property, for sure. We're not,
it's not, the way the building would be set up, there wouldn't be any room for anyone to stay there.
Mr. Chair, I will move to accept the application filed by Jerry Thompson for a wedding venue and retain the ordinance to be free for a wedding venue.
I'll second that.
Moving further into it, you have to grab stuff. For a filed by Jerry Thompson for his own change from A1 to B3. For a venue. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I'd like to make a comment just for advice. We get them all the time, zoning changes and different things. And then you go in and start the process, the case, she'll let you know who lives within the radius that she's going to send letters. It behooves you to talk with your neighbors, and alleviate your concerns in case you want to do more development in the future, so you say water. Thanks. Hopefully you don't want to surprise your neighbor.
anything else? Thank you.
Good luck.
Next on our agenda is amendment to the Jackson zoning regulations to a much smaller session than last time. Section 3, Thompson, section 7, to do one portion from special use to variance. We're looking at the
So we had in there, it's going for the board of zoning appeals as a special use. It would be a variance.
We don't have the definition for special
Little
use.
place there.
Well, it would be a special use.
Yeah.
It would be a variance, which is the distance. The appeals board would do that versus the planning commission. So it's just clean up.
I see this more as a clerical thing, fixing the record, I make a motion to approve.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
hearing on that topic. Is anyone here to talk about that topic at 7:27 p.m.? Okay, I'll do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. 7:27, whatever seconds. Okay. Now, Steve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the change of language in Article 25, Section 3, sign standards, subsection 7, from the words special use to one word variance.
I'll second. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. The motion is to approve the proposed change to Article 25, Section 3, sign standards, subsection 7, for special use to vary. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Next on our agenda is the temporary amendment to Article 30 of the Jackson County zoning regulations allowing the 24-month moratorium on commercial wind energy applications in the project. Does staff have anything we go ahead then now at 7:29 to open the required public hearing on this topic. I want to remind everyone that I'm trying to allow time for the senator, sufficient time for the senator to speak. If anyone did have any real quick comments on the proposed moratorium on clean energy, I'm going to shorten the time to 30 seconds. Do you have something to say? A second. I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm sorry. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. Name, please, and brief comment, question, or statement.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Name, please, and then a brief comment, question, or statement.
Sure. I'm Caleb Brooks. I'm with K-State. We have a wind competition out there that's ran, it's a complete wind competition hosted by the United States Department of Energy. As a team, we like to make people aware in K-State and around Kansas of what wind power does for us and why it is important. Just a few quick footnotes. We develop wind farms from the ground up for this competition, as well as wind turbines. With this in mind, we believe that Jackson County current proposal of a wind farm moratorium could prove a detrimental effort to reduce the impacts of climate change and kill job opportunities for people like me and the people on my team, as well as people with me. Climate change and its impacts on us, like sea level rising, increased weather, those sorts of things, as well as threats to biodiversity, is something I care very deeply about, and I feel like my generation also cares very deeply about. And by putting a moratorium on the development of wind farms, it decreases the availability of research and more information of that. And energy generation and industry demands are one of the largest contributors towards climate change, and renewable energy is a great way to kind of reverse that.
systems. And I've developed a passion in my background and my time here for renewable energy and sustainability. I want to work with renewable energy policy creations, and I will be attending graduate school in the fall to continue my work on renewable energy systems. As I look for graduate schools, I've been spending a lot of time reflecting on the opportunities I received at Kansas State University, and I originally did not expect to stay in Kansas for graduate school. But the opportunity to be right in the heart of renewable energy production at a school that focuses heavily on issues of grid sustainability is becoming increasingly difficult to pass up. Renewable energy projects in Kansas provide stable careers for my generation that allow us to work on renewable energy systems, but also bring economic opportunity, jobs, and a wide range of fields, both to graduates and technical workers in their communities. And in my experience, renewable energy groups and wind farm groups, they want to hire Kansas grads. They love hiring people out of Kansas, and like applying for jobs and applying for full-time positions, I've really seen this. They view everyone in Kansas as a tremendous asset because we have this sort of environment where we see these wind farms go up, we're in communities where this happens often, and we have a major edge over most of the country in wind development. We should take pride in the fact that we rank fourth in wind energy development. We should also take pride in the opportunities that these farms bring, high-paying jobs for graduates looking to stay in Kansas. My students and my peers, they want to stay here. A lot of them are actively limiting their full-time career search to the West because this is where the interesting wind generation happens. And I want to keep it that way. I urge us to keep it that way. We want to stay here and we want to work with Kansas as a leader in renewable energy, and I hope that when I graduate, I continue to take advantage of the opportunities that exist here. And as you evaluate this decision for a wind farm moratorium, I'd ask that you consider the impact that the city has on the next generation and the future of wind in Kansas. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Thank you.
My name is Anna Parker, and I am against windows in Jackson County. I do not think they belong here. I think that they take fees. I think that they affect every single farmer in this area. They do not just affect the person who's on that farm. I think that they should actually be banned, but if you won't do that, I would please ask that you please put a moratorium on it to give us more time to get the thing. I live on a small farm, and community wants to be affected by our land or by other people.
Anyone else? Okay.
I want to agree with you, but I also want to say, you talk about the environment and stuff, there are graveyards from these windmills because they don't break down, they don't biodegrade, and they are sitting there forever and ever and ever. So don't preach at us as farmers and the people that are on the land. We're the ones that take care of our land. We're the ones that care about our waterways and our air. I am all for wind energy on a private basis. I'm all for solar energy on a private basis, but not for Jackson County.
Ma'am, thank you. Can you say your name for the record?
My name's Elizabeth Kraft, and I'm in Jackson County.
I'm John Fox. I'm a resident of Jackson County for 18 years. I also grew up in Washington County.
Does that microphone work? Because half of us can't hear what's being said. Does it work at all? Is there a way you can get a mic? So we can hear what's being said? I'm sorry, I'm pretty hard of hearing, and I know my wife's struggling too. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I brought a lot of pictures tonight, but since I'm only limited to like a minute or so, once you brought up the cemeteries, if you go to Tabor Cemetery in Republic, Kansas, there's 461,000 acres in Republic County. This turbine is 1,015 feet away from that cemetery. You will have no control over that if you don't have setbacks. How would you like to go to the cemetery and look at that? St. George Cemetery in Republic County. This turbine is 760 feet away. It's heartbreaking to see this. Can you imagine attending a burial of a loved one, having to see the monstrosity while listening to the hum of it, along with the swish noise of the blades? They rotate, and depending on the time of the burial, potentially see the shadow flicker across the casket that's being lowered into the ground. I hope you think about this when you're putting these, whatever your laws are that you're gonna do. There's also $1.5 million house that just went up in Marshall County. They put the transmission line across there, 780 feet away from their house. That's what it looks like. When NextEra is done, here's your trash. Marshall County landfill will not take it because it's too much. It would fill the landfills. What are you gonna do with it? Go talk to the landowners that are now living in a wind farm before you make this decision. You need to hear from the families that are actually living in a wind farm day after day. Take a drive during the day to see the flicker on Highway 99. And at night to see the blinking lights on Highway 99 going north from Blaine to Frankfurt. But keep in mind, the ones that have signed a contract with the wind farm cannot legally complain due to the contract they signed. Tonight, after you shut off that last light at your house, step outside, enjoy the quiet, look at the night sky and count the stars. Look at your neighbor's house and pray that NextEra and the current county commissioners do not break up your family and friendships like it's happened in Marshall County. Think about your kids, your grandkids, and your great-grandkids enjoying what you're seeing outside right now. Because in Marshall County, you can no longer step outside and enjoy that quiet. All you hear is that whoosh. So I hope these pictures and information will help you in making important decisions you have ahead of you. If you need more pictures or information, please don't hesitate to contact me. The wind farm company has torn the community of Marshall County apart and will do the same thing here.
Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? Okay. We'll get the closing of the public hearing. I have 7:31 p.m. Okay, we have before us a temporary amendment to Article 30. We're extending wind moratorium for 24 months.
Mr. Chairman, I suppose they'll have a different resolution number assigned since it's a renewal of an active moratorium that we currently have as of January 17th of 2023. It's a resolution establishing a moratorium on commercial wind energy projects in Jackson County, Kansas, and I move to approve it as initially submitted.
Is there a second? We move the second to resolution extending the existing renewal of the existing moratorium on the months. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so carries.
I'd like to make a statement. Thank you to everybody who spoke. The for or against, it's appreciated. Even though it didn't go the way you guys obviously wanted it to go, thank you for coming up and talking. It takes a lot of guts to come up and talk to a room full of strangers you've never met before. You're passionate about what you believe in, and that's great. So thank you for that.
Okay, next on our agenda is Senator Mike Thompson. Just to let everyone know, there is an 8 o'clock meeting in this room for the appeals board. So I just want everyone to know kind of our somewhat limited timeline. So the floor is yours. If you want to talk for 15, 16 minutes, you want to take questions as part of that.
Yeah, and let me just say that I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come talk. Hopefully I can talk loud enough for everyone to hear. Just to give you a little bit of a background, I'm originally grew up in southeast Kansas, Coffee County, home of Wolf Creek Power Plant. They're dealing with the wind issues down there, and I've got to say, I applaud your decision tonight. I've been in well over a dozen counties around this state over the last 5-6 years since I retired as a meteorologist, which I still am, basically. I've been a meteorologist for 46, 47 years. But I've been in communities like this who are trying to make the right decision with regard to industrial scale wind and solar. And I think what you're going to hear is that the problems you see with the wind are similar to the solar in a lot of ways. And there's so many things to consider that rushing into this is a big problem, because what you're doing is making a long-term decision for the long-term viability of your county and the ag land that is going to be displaced by these huge things. I may also say that for anyone who's considering a lease, I would highly recommend you hire an independent and competent attorney, and that's just more of a caveat. I know that's not what you guys deal with, because it is caveat emptor. You can't prevent someone from making a horrible legal mistake, but if you read one of these leases, and I've seen wind leases, I've seen solar leases, there's a lot of similarities. You are essentially signing away your property to the operator, and that means either the wind or the solar operator, and they have total control over your land that you lease to them. They can mortgage your land, you cannot. They can put a lien on your land. And I've had situations with wind, and I'm talking about wind in context of the solar because you're going to see a lot of the same things. There was a wind farm in Kansas that went belly up before it was completed, and there was a lien, a construction lien on that wind farm for over $30 million. So somebody who signs a lease, are they going to be on the hook for this? What's the county going to do? There's so many things, and if you look at the leases and you have the opportunity to, and I realize there are gag orders on these leases, but I've seen a number. They tell you can tell what kind of issues you're going to be dealing with. Substations are going to be put on this land. There might be a cell tower put on your land. All sorts of different things. The battery storage, they say, I find this interesting. It says, owner or operator leases operators for owner's property in order to construct, operate, replace, locate, remove, and maintain one or more battery facilities on owner's property. Trust me, it's going to be a lot more than one. For a 230-acre solar farm, you're going to have hundreds of tractor-trailer-sized batteries. And one of the problems with that is there's a huge fire danger with these things. These lithium-ion batteries tend to overheat very rapidly. It can take 500,000 gallons of water just to contain that fire. You can't put it out with water. And so your firemen in this area, if they don't have the resources, cannot stop that from spreading to other batteries or to turn into a wildfire. So one issue is, do you have enough water in this county to fight the fires required in case you have that type of situation? That's just one of the environmental problems we have. The other thing in this lease, it guarantees they will strip the land of all trees. They will strip the land of any vegetation because you don't want any vegetation growing up around these solar panels, because there can be zero obstruction of anything that blocks the sunlight. And there will be an easement around this solar farm, industrial scale farm, because in the lease it requires 360-degree circumference around the industrial scale solar facility, and 180 degrees basically from land to land, 180 degrees non-obstruction. If you've ever seen a picture of solar farm, there are no trees growing up in these things. So they're going to have to put herbicide down to prevent plant growth. They'll probably use pesticides as well. So you have to concern yourself with the potential runoff, leaching into the groundwater, what that's going to do to the water supply for Jackson County and the people who live there. They also use galvanized zinc posts on these solar panels, and there's going to be thousands of them. You're talking, what, 6,000 acres, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 acres. Over time, the pH of the soil reacts to the galvanization, and you get leaching of zinc into the soil. So at some point in the distant future, and I'm talking distant future, when they decide to abandon this farm and you have to deal with decommissioning, you may also have to deal with toxic waste products. How much is that going to cost the county? As they said, with the wind blades, you cannot recycle, or you can try to recycle these solar panels, but the cost of recycling is 45 times that of putting it into a landfill. There's going to be a flood of solar panels going into landfills over the next 4 to 6 years nationwide. The costs are going to be enormous. So you're not going to be able to find a place to put these solar panels. And if there's a hailstorm that comes by prematurely, which happened up in Nebraska, these entire solar facilities can be wiped out by hail. Then you have to call in the EPA because there's heavy cadmium, there's lead, there's nickel inside these solar panels, there's a lot of glass that you have to deal with. You have to call in the EPA to clean this thing up, and you have to replace those panels. What people who sign these leases don't realize, during that time period, they're not going to get paid. It's not producing any electricity. So the thought that this is a constant Christmas tree that keeps delivering time and time again is absolutely false. The other issue is that this lease can be changed unilaterally at any time by the operator. So the solar farm operator can change the terms of this lease. All he has to do is tell the owner, here's what I'm going to do. The owner has no recourse whatsoever. And in fact, in the very back of the lease, if you read it carefully, you'll notice you waive your trial by jury. So you have virtually no legal recourse. On top of that, these big companies like NextEra hire $1,000 an hour lawyers. I've seen it. I've seen it before my committee. I was chairman of the Utilities Committee in the State Senate. For 2 years, I've served on the Utilities Committee studying these problems statewide. And these smaller communities and people within the communities don't have the money to fight this legally. These big companies like NextEra do. They hire an army of lawyers to deal with it. So this is a big, big problem. I tried to set a standardized regulation for wind and solar in the state for the 2 years when I was chairman. I ran into a lot of problems because of lobbyists, and so the fight goes down to the county level. To people like you who have to decide, how are we going to regulate this? What kind of setbacks are we going to put in place? What kind of environmental issues do we have? Have you considered dust control? Because if you strip the land of all that stuff, you have a lot of wind, and we haven't had rain in a long time. We're in big trouble right now. We're in a very dry pattern. You're going to have all sorts of dust. Also, this degradation of the solar panels. They don't operate and continue to consistently produce the same power from the first year to the last. Each year they lose the ability to produce electricity. So as that electricity generation capacity goes down, the folks who sign the leases get less and less money. The other issue is property tax abatement. Because the state, in its infinite wisdom, I say that facetiously, gave 10-year property tax abatements to wind and solar facilities, you're missing out for 10 years on all the property tax on all this ag land that's going to be out of production in perpetuity, because these leases are, as long as these guys want to stay here, they can stay here. And the reason they're doing this is because of federal subsidies. It's not because these things produce appreciable amounts of energy in the country. Solar is subsidized at 302 times nuclear power. It gets $4.1 billion in subsidies. That was in 2022. $4.1 billion in subsidies went to the solar. Wind was just under $1 billion. And nuclear was at 10 million. Look at the disparity. The reason they're putting these solar plants out all across the United States is because it is big business. Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan said he wishes they could get eminent domain powers so they could put these things everywhere, because they realize it is big business for the big banks, these big companies like Nextera, the big law firms. This is not about helping your county. This is about turning you into an industrial energy playground for big companies. And I've seen this in wind farms all across, not only Kansas, but elsewhere. Once the money dries up from these subsidies, and you don't know what's going to happen if we change administrations in Washington, those subsidies dry up, all of a sudden they can say, hey, we're out, we're bankrupt, sorry. These are LLCs that they do business with these counties. And these limited liability corporations, they file bankruptcy, they're gone. You're left holding the bag, trying to figure out what to do with this giant solar facility in your county. There are a lot of things to consider with regard to regulations. There's air traffic, glint and glare issues. There's the change in the wildlife. I heard some gentleman talking about the hunting. You're going to displace wildlife habitat to the tune of 6,000 acres. I did a little calculation how much it would take. Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant has a nameplate capacity of 1,200 megawatts, okay? To equal the generation capacity of Wolf Creek, you would need 27 million acres of solar capacity, which would be the equivalent of half the state of Kansas. And that doesn't count the battery storage. Before we started going down this path with renewables, we had no problem with power generation at all. We had base load power, which for people who don't understand that, that's your coal, that's your nuclear, and that's your gas power. They were operating just fine. All we needed was a little bit of quick ramping gas generation to take care of the peak loads. And there was absolutely zero reason to have any wind or solar power whatsoever. But we started down this path in around 2005 to 2007, primarily in the wind field, but recently, because of the solar subsidies, we've seen a large pivot towards solar. But if you look at the electric rates on the EIA since 2005, the electric rates in Kansas have gone up commensurate with the institution of these renewables. And it's not because electricity has become more expensive to produce at coal or gas or nuclear plants. In fact, nuclear plants are cheap. Once you pay for the initial cost of Wolf Creek, the uranium is dirt cheap. Coal is the least expensive way to produce power in the state. And yet, the new EPA standards are going to accelerate the closure of coal plants across the entire country. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, in fact, has just filed suit against the EPA because they realize we're retiring so many coal plants that we're going to have reliability issues, because all we're doing in the United States right now is producing wind and solar facilities. That doesn't mean we're producing more electricity. In fact, in Kansas, because of the addition of all these facilities, we have 50% more generation capacity in the state right now than we need. So it's like you can't use all the generating capacity we have. But by putting more of these in, we're contributing to the increase in electric rates in the state of Kansas. And just this week, Evergy filed let me see if I can find it. It was a predetermination docket with the Kansas Corporation Commission to add resource additions to the Evergy fleet. What that means is more wind and solar, because they're going to get more subsidies. They don't need the power. In fact, the Southwest Power Pool, which we're part of, has almost 100% more generation capacity than they need. So every time one of these resources comes online for wind or solar, all we're doing is adding more cost to everyone in this room, because we have to pay for the transmission lines. And by the way, none of the generation from those facilities stays in Kansas. We're shipping it out to Illinois and Missouri and Oklahoma. And so just none of this makes any sense whatsoever. I just want to argue, but I think you kind of get the sense. I was barely straight to service. I could probably talk to the fellow about it, and I have done so in other counties who are fighting this, but I think you see that just like the problems you face with Canada, there's so many things to notice. There's so many issues to make sure you're making the right decision on, that a moratorium on solar is a wise decision. I've also fought for transparency at the state level, or with regard to anyone who has substantial interest in any of these farms, that they should recuse themselves from making decisions. I think it should be transparent. I'll just end on this one note and then open for questions, and we'll see where it goes. With regard to energy, the energy return on investment is the most important thing you can consider. What you want to do to be green and clean and sustainable is create the most energy with the least number of resources, right? So with a nuclear power plant or a coal or gas plant, just to create 1 megawatt of electricity, think about 12 acres. For a solar farm, it would be approximately 989 acres to create 1 megawatt. And for wind, it's about 1,600 acres for 1 megawatt. So nuclear has an energy return on investment of 81. For every 1 unit it takes to produce nuclear energy, it produces 80 units of energy. Coal and gas, it's about 50 to 55 to 1. Wind and solar, it's 1 to 1. And in fact, because wind and solar facilities are electric, they actually require electricity to run because of the power inverters. Solar not as much as wind, but it's some. You're actually a net loss in energy. And then you've got all these decommissioning problems, massive. We're talking just the wind alone. Let me give you an example. We have over 4,000 wind turbines in the state of Kansas. It will cost the state or somebody at the current price about $8 billion to decommission all the wind turbines in the state. And I'll guarantee you it won't happen. You'll have broken down wind turbines everywhere. The same will happen with solar facilities. We also don't, it just doesn't make sense. In Kansas, we are not in the southern latitude. During the winter, you get snow and ice storms. These solar panels people will be exposed to. The sun goes down once every day, the last time I checked. And so you're guaranteed for it not to operate. The only people who are going to benefit from this will be the big power companies, the big law firms, the big businesses, and the folks who have bid on this market employee are going to regret it, because these are intergenerational decisions that will affect ag land. I keep saying this is the last thing I'm going to say. Like I said, I can go on for days. This is it. Remember, the property tax valuation on ag land is on 30% of the valuation. For residential, it's only 11.5. So the property tax loss to the county is 2 times larger, almost 3 times larger than the property tax loss if you replace residential with solar. And I don't think you want a big solar farm like me. So this is long-term. There's a lot of things to consider, and I'll open it up for you.
Well, you mentioned something about the fire.
Yes.
And they're very hard to put out. The Canadian government, the firefighters union, sent a letter to the government saying they will not fight wind or solar fires anymore.
Right.
So you've got the toxic smoke from the fires as far as our Kansas wind will take it, killing people in Nebraska, potentially making them sick. And then the galvanization and all the other hail damage, minerals in groundwater. It's going to affect the local watersheds. This particular site's close to Cross Creek, which feeds the city of Rossville and another county. I mean,
It's huge. You say you get one of these fires, these lithium-ion batteries, which are in these giant battery storage units, leak polyfluoroalkyls, these are PFAs. Have you ever seen the movie Dark Waters about Monsanto triathlon and how it can create birth defects and cancer. These PFAs, we're just learning more and more about how it leaches into the soil. That's in these giant lithium-ion batteries. You know, everybody thinks wind and solar is green and clean, but they're not. It takes huge amounts of backup generation for these even to exist. So if you want to, if your goal is to reduce CO2 in the atmosphere, which it should be, by the way, and I'm an expert on climate change, I can talk to that for about 2 hours. You should want more electrical generation from nuclear, coal, and gas because the energy return on investment has a much smaller footprint than these things at all. It doesn't make sense. Lynn County just banned both wind and solar. And so there are counties making that decision. You are not hanging out there on your own. I've been from Republic County to Nemaha County. I've been all over the state, and I see people facing these same problems. And I'm a Kansas native. I don't like what's happening in this land with regard to these renewables. I'm afraid our next generation has been misled severely, and I feel very bad for that. And that's why I'm here to speak out.
Well, you're not a resident of Jackson County.
No, I'm not.
So you have no vested interest in either side.
None whatsoever.
Since you've been constrained by time, would you please come back and talk to us again when we can give you more time?
Would love it. Absolutely. And like I said, feel free to contact me. Like I said, I want to be a resource. That's why I'm serving as a senator. I anticipate I will still be on the utilities committee coming forward, so these are big issues for me. Has been for the last 5-6 years. Actually, I've been studying this for over 20 years before I got into the Senate, but it's important to me. And I don't want to see small communities and small rural towns like I grew up in being taken advantage of. I really don't. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
I'm a renewable leasing agent. My name is Chris Beadle.
Chris, hold on, I was gonna ask a question.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
We have like 2 minutes. We're already delaying another group.
Okay, I just was wondering if you could ban batteries. I thought that was in the regulations.
We haven't seen the regulations.
But I guess my question would be, could you ban batteries?
Well, here's the thing. If you ban batteries, there's absolutely zero storage of the electricity that the solar.
So you could.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, the leases include the batteries. Okay? So that's part of the deal.
County banning.
As part of the regulation, absolutely, because there's no regulation in the state that even requires.
And how many acres did you say that megawatt was sold?
No.
I thought it was more like solar panels.
Well, here's
because I think that 3,000 acres would come close to 500 megawatts, which is like half of
right.
Wolf Creek.
That's nameplate capacity.
Yeah.
But let me explain that very quickly. Nameplate capacity is what it's capable of producing if it's producing full out 24/7. Okay? But the capacity factor is what's important. Capacity factor is how much it actually produces over time. Wolf Creek has a maximum capacity factor of 101%. So it can actually produce more energy than it's rated to produce. But because of all the changes in sunlight, the sun angle, the inefficiencies, the capacity factor for solar is about 10 to 15% maximum. So you might have a 100 megawatt field, but it's only going to produce about maximum about 15 megawatts of electricity.
In grasses, they can be grown, right? I mean, I know the ones you look at, the huge ones on. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm about to ask 2 questions already.
Okay.
Sir, if you want to just ask.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the leases because that's what I do. Typical renewable lease,
is not tied to production, it's tied to whether or not the improvement is there. So you're paid as long as that is there. The removal is bonded into the contract. So that is not something that the landowner or the county is on the hook for. They don't do leases like that. No one can mortgage your property, they don't have title to it. They can mortgage their share in the project, but that property remains entitled to you. No one can mortgage it out from under you.
If they're bond and they're bankrupt, how would that work?
Well, the bond is money put aside ahead of time. Different for removal.
So you're saying the $500 million it costs to put it in, the $500 million plus the accrued value in the future to remove it, is somewhere getting fed over time for the next.
It's bonded in.
No, I'm just saying bonded.
Right.
They're going to continue to feed hundreds of millions of dollars into it.
Well, it's not going to cost that much.
It's part of the energy school. Is that right? Where do you get your numbers?
Okay. There's value in the material that they're removing that pays for part of that, but the projects are bonded. The bond. That's what you do. You put money into a bond, and it's set aside to cover that. But the main thing is, no one can mortgage your property out from underneath you. They don't have the title to it. The leases are based on the improvement being there, not production.
Could you state your name?
Chris Beadle.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, it is now 8:08. We are 8 minutes into the next meeting's time. So entertain the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.